All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Unapologetically Black Male, where we talk about surviving the stigma, standards, and systems. Once again, my name is Dwayne Pate, my co-host EJ Stewart. We want to shout out one of our sponsors, J. Pope and Associates, for helping us put this thing together and help us to continue to launch this, spreading the positivity about African American men and just kind of making sure that we get information and education so that we can continue to better ourselves emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, all that above. We have this is a part of our Empower Him series where we talk about different tools and techniques that we need to utilize as African American men to be successful and to make sure that we leave a lasting legacy, not only for ourselves, but our families and our families' families. So today we have Brother James Worthy and Brother Phillip Seaman, and they're going to give a little introduction about themselves, tell us a little bit background, and then we're going to get into what we're kind of targeting this as estate and will planning. We want to make sure that we spread this information as much as possible. So if you're watching right now, I need you to share it. I need you to tag at least 5 brothers, African American men who you know could benefit from this information, so that we can continue to uplift each other and make sure that we are building a generational wealth that we speak of on a consistent level. So I'm gonna turn it over to James and Phillip, and you guys can take turns introducing yourself, and then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of the information.
All right. Well, thank you, Dwayne. My name is Phillip Seaman. I'm an independent associate with Legal Shield. Background, entrepreneur, DJ. I do a lot of admin and moderator work for the Buy Black Network in Baltimore group, and just helping the community out. And that's my background, and I'd like to introduce Mr. Worthy.
Well, first and foremost, Brother Dwayne, thank you for allowing us to be a part of the podcast tonight. Give a little background history of me and why this podcast truly is exciting for me to participate in. As Phil said, my name is James Worthy. I'm an entrepreneur, been an entrepreneur since the days of Penn State. I was that kid who grew up in Southeast DC. Mom and dad told me that I had to go to school, get a good education, all the rules, and I did that. I was blessed to go to Penn State University. I majored in business management with a minor in hotel and restaurant management. But as I said, I'm an entrepreneur. I started my first traditional business back in 1990 and ran that. And then I was introduced to some empowering information with a company by the name of PPLSI. It's the home of Legal Shield and ID Shield, the services that I've now for over 26 years been working with entrepreneurs, especially African-American entrepreneurs, and have a real feeling for the African-American male. Some of the work that I've done over these 30 years of being in business has also led me to speak on behalf of responsible fatherhood and mentoring programs for African-American males around this country. So, Dwayne, when you first allowed us to start this discussion, why I'm so excited about talking about wills and estates and all of this is because over the years, working with fathers, watching families be destroyed because the things that lead to wealth and estate planning and growth of a family just wasn't what we talked about in our community. And I'm gonna tell y'all, Southeast wasn't a silver spoon district. Some of you brothers from the Baltimore, DC area, some of our listeners might be I'm an old school Southeast dude. I'm not, new school now. Southeast is totally different. So that's really where I want to land today, to talk about these things and just to share not only from my point of view, but for things that we have available to Black men, especially our entrepreneurs. So Dwayne, I'll throw it to you. You kind of got us because we can get into the presentation if you got questions, and we can just roll from there.
Now, I think that's a great way to get started. Thank you for the introduction. I definitely appreciate you. I'm just glad we was able to connect in the and I think it was the Buy Black Network.
Buy Black Network in Baltimore.
Buy Black Network, and I'm just grateful that we were kind of able to connect through that, and we were to kind of get this information because you've done some, in our brief conversation, you've done a lot of things, and then when I started to advertise it, people was like, "Oh yeah, I know him. I used to work with him at PG Department of Social Services." I was like, "Oh, I got the right person on the line there." So I'm just excited about the information that you're going to share. So we can just hop right into it. As far as like let's start with the importance of will and estate planning.
And you know what, Dwayne? Let me start.
Okay.
And just kind of talk about a mindset for all of us dads, all of us black men, all of our families out there. Because in today's world, especially, I love what our young people, our young minds are doing. We're seeing that the old way of playing the game isn't quite working in the new world. To go to a job, be there for 40 years, retire, get the gold watch and the pension. It's not happening. Right. So one of the things that estate planning always brings to my mind is helping us. And I'm gonna just show a quick book. I don't know if you can see it on the podcast or anything, but here it's called How Money Works. I love this book because it says stop being a sucker. This book has 7 milestones for creating wealth and legacy. Now, why did I start there? Because many of us are starting to see that when other communities, and I'll use that word, other communities, you'll start to see that generation after generation, they're climbing when it seems as though the African-American male is either staying stagnant or dropping. And people may not even believe what I'm saying right now, but one of my good friends who is a research doctor from University of New York. His name is Dr. Ron Mincy. Ron has spent his entire career looking at the wages for African-American men. And the wages for African-American men has not increased. And I'm talking in dollar cents, has not increased since 1977. What do I mean? We're still earning at the same rate. Now, are we earning more? Yes, because it costs more to live. So we've been able to keep pace, but we're not starting to kill that gap of living check to check, so to speak. How many of us grew up? I know I grew up check to check. Anybody else grow up check to check? And what usually happens, and I'm gonna just ask all of our listeners if they're gonna start to chat in with us. We want to hear from them, because here's what I found out. I've gone to many of funerals. You guys are still young. I'm 54, be double nickel this year. And I've gone to a lot of funerals. And it's so sad that it used to be, at least when I was younger, there was some life insurance in place to bury a person. Now, what are we seeing the burial game? GoFundMe?
GoFundMe, yeah.
How many have seen a GoFundMe burial page?
Yeah.
And so Brother Dwayne, Brother EJ, you know that there's no will in place if we're doing GoFundMe. But what do we also know? That if that person, especially African-American man, had children, grandchildren, put his grind in at somebody's job, maybe had a little retirement, something, we know that there is no protection for that information. So I want to take some time, and I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully you guys will be able to see my screen. Let me make sure. If you would, guys, give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen. Can you give me a thumbs up? I think I showed.
Let me see. I got to add you to this.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay. So,
all right.
So I want to just take a few minutes here, and I want to talk about what an estate is. And I want to give some facts, because I don't want to talk to brothers on what I think or what I believe or, my opinion. I want to just talk to you strictly about facts. Now, what we've seen is, since the pandemic, the number of Americans who have wills has drastically increased. Why do you think that is, guys? Because in 2020, people start passing away left and right, didn't they? And Google put out a notice that the searches for wills and how to get a will done went up over 600% when that pandemic really hit. What did that show people? I'm not prepared. But the Gallup poll says only 44% of the Americans have a will in place. So if we're looking at these numbers, guys, we're talking 56% don't have a will in place. What does that mean? That more than half of the people out there. Now, when you bring those numbers into the African-American community, those numbers go up to about 75, 80% don't have wills in place. Now, does that mean we don't have assets? Does that mean we don't work hard? We don't have anything to leave? How many of us know we got families that back in the day, families had some land. Any of y'all have a family? I know my family had land down in Halifax, Virginia.
Yeah, my people's in Emporia, Virginia.
It has some land down there.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? Somebody didn't put a will in place, and Nana passed, Big Mama passed, Granddaddy passed, and then the brothers and sisters, they don't go back down there no more because we urban now. We up where the money at. We don't work. So that land gets let go, and now what? Some developer got that land for barely nothing, and somebody's family that own that development company has got wealth built off of land we should have had. Built off of assets. Somebody done work real hard down the shipyards or down the mill, and they get a little something laid aside because they old grandma used to say put a little something away for rainy days, had a little something, little savings account. Wasn't doing much, but it's something. But guess what? She passed, don't nobody know. And then you look in the paper and they say all these assets that nobody has claimed. Anybody ever seen that every year? At least the Baltimore Sun does it. Every year they put out all of this unclaimed asset.
Yep.
That's what not having a will starts to do. So when I start to look at my brothers, when I talk to my brothers, there's some crazy perceptions out there. And one of the craziest, and it's just a side note, is that brothers say, man, I don't want to talk about no will, dog. You talking about that, and I ain't trying to talk about death. Anybody ever heard that? I ain't trying to talk about
you done put me in the grave.
You gonna put me in the grave. So the reality is, look, I don't need it if I want everything to go to my kids. Oh, no. Your kids, look, even if your kids do get a hold of it, if you die intestate, what that means, if you die intestate without a will, your children may get it. But the probate courts, to make sure that they're supposed to get it, is going to eat up 40% of whatever you got. So you just cut 40. Think about that, guys. If I had $100 for you, and I say, Dwayne, drop by the house, pick this $100 up, and you get in your car, you put the gas in, and you come over here, and when you get here, I say, yo, I only got 60. Dwayne, you're not gonna be happy with me, are you?
Not at all.
Not at all.
I was looking for that 100.
I'm looking for the 100. And the reality is, we're putting our kids in that position. My family members will take care of my kids. We have more kids in foster care because maybe the state doesn't deem your people the right place for your kids to go to. Even though Nana would take care of her, maybe Nana live in a place that she done been there for years. It might not be the safest place, might not be the spot, but we know it's a lot of love in there, but the state say it's not up to what we want it to be. So Nana don't get the kids, or your brother don't get the kids. So these are all the crazy misconceptions. I don't have anything of value. Guys, we're going to talk about that in a minute because I hear that so much. People say, well, man, shoot, I ain't got nothing to leave. I hear some crazy stuff. Somebody steal my identity, they can have it. Because look, bad as my credit is, bad as all of these things we've been taught. And I want to talk about some of the inbred and educated misconceptions that we have. I don't say we just out here running willy-nilly. We have been miseducated. So we can get into that later if we really discuss this, because I did hear you say unapologetically. So I ain't apologizing for the fact that I do believe there has been some miseducation, and there's a book that'll help everybody with that. It's called Miseducation of the Negro, but I'm gonna leave that there for a second. So when we look at this, guys, it's too expensive. It takes too long. Well, let's talk this. Does everybody have an estate? See, because when we hear the word estate, how many of you know when we was growing up, you hear estate, you thought it was the big house, the big rich car. Yeah, that's what the estate is. Where we lived in the little row house on Baltimore Street, that wasn't no estate. That's the hood. But that's a property. So I want to talk to people about this. What is an estate? Let's give some definition. An estate is all of an individual's property, and financial assets and liabilities at the time of his or her death. Woo. See, there's some things that we didn't figure out that as Black men, guys, we can't leave here and leave a bunch of liabilities on our loved ones. Traditionally, let's talk. Men, traditionally, African-American men, traditionally, we die earlier than our spouses or girlfriends or mothers of our children. Let's give some statistics. We drive our average age is 68. Our women are living to 79. Those are the averages. Okay, so the reality is, on average, we're dying more, we're early. And do you see that the estate also encompasses liabilities? Did you see that? If you're not going to take time to clean up the house before you leave, how many of y'all know when you used to travel with your mom and daddy, y'all was going somewhere and you was going to leave for the weekend? Didn't mom always make you clean up the house before you leave? You couldn't leave things in the sink, couldn't leave trash in the, you had to clean up. Well, let's use that same understanding in the management of what happens when we leave here, brothers. See, because the reality is we can't leave a dirty house of liabilities and debts and things that got to be taken care of. Let's make sure we say how to dispose of, how to handle these things. So when people look at what an estate really is, here's some examples of why you need to do some estate planning. Let me give these examples, and I hope that we got some people out there listening that might be asking some questions, because we're going to get to them. But if you have an estate, so if you have a house or property, if you have something, you got to do some estate planning. If you are married or remarried, how many of you know we got a lot of people living in blended and remarried families? Let's talk about it. If you have children, a blended family, or new additions to the family. If you think some of your relatives might try to contest what's yours, let's talk. How many of y'all have seen the fights go on right after the funeral? Anybody? Oh, y'all don't have them type families like I do.
Body ain't even cold yet. They talking about I'm gonna take this. Pop said I can have this whole room.
There you go. Nana said, I get that. Oh yeah, and we don't believe that it's going to come to that, because we in the moment before, we don't want to talk about death, and after we so hurt by death. But people, the teeth come out, especially if traditionally we've been living check to check. Sometimes the death is a come up, and that's sad. Anybody ever seen somebody come up because mama, daddy died, left a little something, so you got to come up? Come on now. We got to make sure we plan this out. If someone's connected to you that has passed away, if you own all or part of a business, I spend so much time with all of us, because a lot of my brothers, I love it. My brothers are looking at entrepreneurship a lot more. I know you, Dwayne, you talk about entrepreneurship. Philip talks about entrepreneur. That's common language. And for brothers, we've found a way to financially come up a little bit with entrepreneurship. Well, if you own a part or a small part or a big part of a business, you definitely want to do some estate planning, because you want that asset to continue to pay to your children, continue to be there. I'm a daddy of three. I got a 21-year-old, a 19-year-old, 15-year-old, 3 boys, great kids doing their thing. But I put things in place and the estate is laid out. So when I go, they got. Do you get, when you go, they got. So we want that to be, if you're retiring or expecting a financial decrease, because many people are saying, well, when I retire, I'm gonna be on a fixed income. Or maybe you're expecting some more money. I like to look at it from the good side. How many of us expecting to make some more, get some more? You don't want to be at the same 50,000 this year, next year as you are this year. You might be at 60. You got some increases coming. So let's talk about assets. And I spend this time. That's why, again, I talk about this book on a regular, and it's cartoons in this book, guys. This is why James Worthy can read it, because I'm not the biggest read. I like pictures, man. I grew up on picture books. Okay, I'm old. Laugh at me later. But the reality is, I give this because my kids can read it. It's fun reading. But it talks about assets, and I'm looking at so many people. You know how we do, guys. We go buy the pretty car, you know, don't we? We go get the pretty car. You get the brand new Lex, or you get the brand new this and that. And unfortunately, those cars, the minute you drive them off the lot, they
It's
lose
appreciate.
40% of their value. They are depreciating assets. And in my world, that ain't an asset. Let me give you a definition. And I'm going to ask that you share this with brothers from now on, EJ. Once you share this to brothers from now on, Dwayne, an asset is anything that puts money in your pocket if you're not working. Let me say that one more time. An asset is anything that puts money into your pocket if you're not working. So let's talk about some stuff, guys, because how many of us believe that our biggest asset is the house we own? I'm gonna tell you the title of this book, brother. How to win, how money works. Stop being a sucker. Hope that got you there. Now, guys, here's what I want you to understand. In the estate planning world, asset is different. They say your house is an asset, but here's the reality of a house. Until you have either realized the equity or you have paid it off, it is an asset to the bank that they let you claim as yours. But how many of y'all have seen somebody leave a house to somebody and the taxes take it from them? Anybody ever seen that? You know, Nana left us a house paid for. You go in the house, guess what? You forgot that you got to pay taxes on it. And then you come home one day and they having an estate sale. Okay, so this is why you do estate planning, to make sure that the asset is laid out, to make sure if you give it to a kid that you can designate how taxes are handled, who's going to do it, the executive of the estate, so that kids and families know. This is what a standard will is all about. You got to have those things in place. If you have minor children, a standard will is mandatory. Mandatory, my brothers, is mandatory, because the reality is you don't want someone else making decisions on what happens with your minor children. So a standard will can lay that out for you. It is so sad. Dwayne, you were saying that some people that you shared this with say, "Oh, I know Mr. Worthy for working here, there, and everywhere else." I have a background, guys. I used to work with families, and especially fathers coming out of incarceration, coming out of substance abuse recovery. And unfortunately, there's this term that I hate, but I'm gonna use it because everybody knows it. Brothers got different baby mamas. Y'all ever heard that? We even put cute words to it. Multiple baby mama management programs. Because you got to make sure you keep all that together. But if you got different children with different people, you've got to talk estate planning. Because you know that this is, especially if you and that spouse, something happened to you and the mother of the child, or you, since we're talking to my brothers, something happened to both of you. Daddy, please step up and have your will and estate plan done. Also, for those of us who love our dogs and cats more than we love our family, okay? Don't assume that Phil going to take your cat. Phil didn't like the cat when you was alive. Phil will put that cat right in the ASPCA. You better tell people where you want that cat to go, okay? And I'm laughing about it, but guys, these are all things that you are responsible for. But Dwayne, EJ, Philip, and so many of us probably on this line today, all of us guys, we out here getting our grind on. I hear the words all the time, man. I'm on my grind, man. I'm out here getting my hustle on. I'm doing it. How many of you know everybody doing something? I got the podcast. I got me these my one of my great brothers. I got to give him a big out. Hope he'll plug in and look at this. Brother Vernon Wallace then launched his own clothing line called Checkerboard. I know that was a free advertisement for the brother, but I love him. He done launched this free. Look, I said, man, have you done any success planning, estate planning, and making sure that this beautiful brand that you put in the ground on, you selling out the back of your car right now? How many of you know that's where we start that grind so many times? He's selling out the back of his car. He's starting to get it placed in stores. I said, you got two beautiful children and a wife. Brother, this asset's got to be in a will in case the hustle take you out. Because y'all know that we brothers, we be dying of heart attacks. And I know you're going to have time where y'all talk about health, stress, and all of that. So I ain't going to go over there today. I'm going to leave that alone. But the reality is, estate planning, you got to plan this stuff out. So if it does come to it, you already laid it out. So business owners, brothers, please hear me. Get this estate plan. Make sure you say what happens with the business, who takes it over, who has access to it, all of that. You lay that out in your standard will. And then I want to talk about something that this pandemic really woke people up about. And it's a living will. Living will is the thing that you have your medical directives written in. And what that means is what happens if you are unable to survive on your own. Meaning if they're going to put you on life support or anything like that. And guys, I'm going to take a pause. I'm going to try not to tear up on this. I lost my dad. Wow, it's been now going on 12 years. Lost my dad. September will be 12 years. And my dad died of pancreatic cancer. And I'm so appreciative that he had his estate plan done because of these services some of the things that we provide to people. But he had it all done. And I remember my dad laying in bed. He was fighting, had the tube in his, but he had already written out that no, that's not how he wanted to live. Now, how many of y'all know that as an only child, had it not been laid out how it was supposed to go, my father might have still been in there, and I'm praying for them to find a way to cure cancer and bring them back, because that was my dude. But the reality is when the doctor said, here's where we are, what would you like us to do? I want you to think about that, guys. I want you to think about your parent. If you haven't gone through this, somebody come to you, say, hey, Dwayne, daddy not doing too good, man. What you want to do? You want to pull the plug, keep him going?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because it plays on the emotional. It's like you want to keep them here, but you don't want them to suffer. Yeah. And it's like continue to, and that navigation is always tough, and and being and seeing that process with my own family, like my grandmother, like when she was on the close to the time where it was time for her to transition. It was like, do we keep on it, or do we just kind of say it's time and just trust? And I think that and that part of the process was difficult, because she's from down in Emporia, Virginia. So, a funny story, we went through her freezer, and we at least found like $3,000 in her freezer.
In her freezer.
Mm-hmm. In the freezer.
In the freezer.
Back, it's in the cup wrapped up in some meat. I was like, Lord, it was just crazy, because, some of them, didn't trust banks. They
didn't trust it. Didn't trust the process. Yep.
So that whole process of trying to decide between, her, keeping her here or, aiding in her transition was a difficult process. And it led to a whole lot more difficult conversations, which could have been handled better if things were put in place.
Dwayne, bruh, you called it out. And family, I hope y'all heard what he said, because you can hear in his voice that he was sitting there with the ugly of it.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm the grandson, so it's like I don't really have no say. I just gotta sit there and listen.
There you go. It gets hierarchy. Bang, bang, bang. And so my dad had put the living will in place. So when the doctor came to me and said, what do you want to do? I got through my own emotion. My mom she's a beast with it. So I was like, here's the will. Here's the living will. The doctor took it, read it, gave me the folder back, said, we'll call you in a few minutes. Because see, my dad told him, pull the damn plug. I ain't living like this. My dad said it just the way he would have said it if he was standing right there looking at himself. And that's the power of taking care of these things. I have no guilt. My mom has no guilt. We did what he wanted to have done. Does everybody understand that? And that's what all of these things are about. Not to leave the pressure on your people. Also, guys, as our families get older, this is all estate planning. Listen to all the things we're talking about. Having a medical power of attorney in place. If you start to get to a point where you're going to be long-term sick, and someone's got to make decisions on how your medical care should be handled. Guys, I'm going through that right now. My grandmother, who's 97, she's the anchor of our family. But it's that she went through having COVID in 2020, fought back. But it's tough at 96 when she got it. It's tough. So the reality is decision making. My mom is having to make these medical decisions. Now we got a live-in nurse with her. We got to make those. But see, not only medically, look at this. When you have children that become 18, 19, 20, I got 2 kids in college right now. My son plays football at Frostburg State University. He's 19. Did you know you got to have a medical power of attorney in place? So if he is to get hurt and he cannot speak for himself, he's in a hospital. Guess what? Daddy just can't run in and say, do this, do that, do the other. If he can't say that's my dad, let him take care of it, then guess what? You got to have that paperwork in place. I didn't know that until my 21-year-old went off to college. And then when my 18-year-old went off and he started playing football, I was prepared. These things have got to be in place. We've got to let people know what to do. Who's going to make decisions for us if we can't make them for ourselves? So the medical power of attorney is so powerful. And let me talk to you about this. As we started to make decisions about my grandmother from a medical standpoint, we got to have a financial power of attorney in place. Because this thing of dementia, my grandmother's walking down these stages, and dementia is an umbrella term, but it comes into play at this stage in a lot of people's lives, because dementia can be brought on just by the wearing down of the brain, but more importantly, it can come on by going through the tragedy of illnesses and sickness. And I've watched it with my grandmother. So the crazy part about it is that now that person may be forgetting that they told Dwayne to handle the money. And as they go further down, if they start to say, I ain't tell that boy to do nothing like that. Oh, Dwayne at the bank trying to take care of grandma's stuff, and grandma saying, I ain't tell him, I don't know that boy. Because, you know, when dementia, they start forgetting who you are. You talk pain. I went through that with my great-grandfather. It's painful. So having that financial power of attorney in place where they understand that this, although it's a difficult situation, I don't know if any of you brothers lived through it. I pray you don't have to, because it's difficult. I watched the agony, the anger my mom has to go through because my grandmother doesn't remember everything. And my grandmother has been still, she lives on her own. She lives in her own place. She's been very independent forever. So I want us to get this. And I know I'm going through a lot, guys, but I want our brothers to really get why it's so important for themselves. Because what happens when we start to lose it? We don't know who to trust anymore. What if your wife passed before you and you got 3 boys and you need them to know what to do? Got to have those things in place. And I tell you, this last will and testament is so powerful, because when you do leave here, see, those other documents is why you're still alive. Did y'all notice that? Out of the 4 major things I'm talking about, 3 of them are why you're still here. Ain't got nothing to do with death. It's got to do with why you're still here. But this last will and testament now is the space that you can get all of what to do when you're gone. And what Phil has done so eloquently is been able to work with a company, PPLSI, to offer Legal Shield. And we make it easy because what we want to do is get people the answers to the questions that they have and have lawyers prepare those documents. Because many of us are running out now trying to do a Google will or Office Depot will. We go get a pack and try and fill it out. And what I've noticed is so many of those Google wills or Office Depot wills, the minute they go to probate, get destroyed, because things can still go to probate when you got a will. Did y'all know that? Just because you got a will doesn't mean it's going to be easy. What the will does is if anybody does say that that's not right, they want to dispute it, then it goes before the judge, and the will is what guides what the judge does. Does everybody get that? So you want an attorney to put these things together. You can have all of this done with a push of a button now. So for all of my brothers out here who say it's time consuming, it's costly, no, it's not. With education comes responsibility. You know, they say that education or knowledge is power. Not true. Not true. It's the application of correct knowledge is power. And that's what I love about what you guys are doing with this podcast, because you're giving correct knowledge so that people can't say, oh, I ain't know. Ignorance is definitely not bliss. I tell you the truth. So the great thing is, step one, you just grab the app. You can go in, you can schedule a time to talk with your estate planning attorneys. I love this because now the attorneys will call you when you're ready and they'll discuss what your assets are. They'll even give you a will questionnaire document so that you can answer some of the questions that can lay all of this stuff out so that your lawyers can sit down with you. If you've ever gone through estate planning, usually you have to take off from work, go over to the attorney's office, pay him $200-$300 an hour to sit down, and he's going to pull out a questionnaire and ask you some questions. Well, what if he could just give you that document and then talk you through it over the phone? It's that easy. And then you send it to him. And the great thing is you can do it online or you can just call them and figure it out. I love this because when you do this, you tell the attorneys what you need. They can pick, you can tell them all the different things that you want to take advantage of, take care of. And now when your attorneys call you, they get back to you and really set up the things that can help. They can talk to you about probate and simple trust. And because some of us need more than just a simple standard will. Some of us may need a trust because we got some things that we want to pay money out to our kids until they're a certain age or after a certain age. So you got to put a trust to protect that money. See, that's why I want people to really know how money works. See, the basis is estate planning. But estate planning is the foundation for building and leaving wealth for your family. And I love this because all of these things, here's what you need to know before you begin, name of everybody involved. See, the attorneys are going to get as detailed as possible. Why is that important? Because if you have someone, let me share something with you guys. I don't know if you know that. Let's say you've been married for, you were in the military and you were married, you were a police officer, and you were married and you get divorced and you remarry. And you forget to put a will in. And that first spouse was with you for 10 years. You passed. Did you know that your previous wife can have access to your current stuff that was with the woman that might have put you in the ground? How many of you know that ain't going to go over well? Dwayne, that ain't going to go over well, is it?
Not at all.
So all of us, brother, you got kids with this lady, and then if any of us saw King Richard, the whole thing about Serena and her dad, the Serena and Venus and their dad. One of the things that the undergirding or the undercurrent of that is now the two families, the kids that he didn't spend as much time with, are really upset because they feel so let's talk about it. There's going to be assets that come from this movie that he's going to get, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Don't let him die right now. I mean, they're going to be a battle in court.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I want you to think about this. How many of y'all know Prince?
New Prince. He didn't have nothing, right?
You did know he died without a will.
Ooh.
Come on now. Anybody know? Oh God, the female singer that died. Phil, help me out. I'm sorry, I'm getting older. That's why I gotta have a will. Dementia might be setting in. But all of these things have got to be in place. So you need to know this as you begin this process. Select what you want, get it done, send it back to the law firm. Tell the law firm the best way to communicate with you. See, you can get all of this done with an app. That's what the world is today. That's why I'm so excited to be working in today's world, because the traditional way, when we educate it, it's not time consuming. It's the same way that you don't go to the mall anymore. See, somebody had to educate you that Amazon deliver everything you want, and it makes it simpler, easier, more affordable to do it. We got to educate people that there's ways to take care of the real things in your life. I love Amazon like anybody else, but the reality is, if I gotta go to the mall to buy it or it show up in my front door, it ain't changing my life. The shoes that I just ordered, they ain't changing my life. And they're gonna make me look real good, but they ain't changing my life. This is protecting my family, and I can do it the same way I do my purchases, guys. So, if you want more information about the process, how to get it, you can get in touch with us through this. But I just wanted to take some time to put this in front of everybody, Dwayne, especially to let people know that how powerful estate planning is. And again, I get these books. They gave these books to me for free, so I'm not selling anything here. But this book, if you get your hands on it, you can reach out to Phil, myself. I'll see if I can get some more copies and give somebody some if they need them. But the reality is, guys, if we as Black men are going to put our families in a better position wealth-wise, it starts with planning. It starts with getting things in place that are necessary to take care of your family long after you're gone. The rule is to leave a legacy for your children's children. So Dwayne, I'll throw it to you and maybe open it up for questions or just have a dialogue after this talk, this information.
Man, absolutely. That was I mean, that, you know, and you don't like me on a few things that, you know, as far as like the different wills. See, when I was thinking about this, you know, I was just thinking about the one where you die, not the living one. Like to be honest, like I know about the power of attorney and like the medical. I knew about that because we had to do that with my grandmother. But it was like the other stuff. It was like, oh yeah, I probably need to put that in place. Me and being a father of 4 under 10, you know, I think it's definitely essential for me to make sure that, you know, if something was to happen that, you know, I'm good. You know, I'm good on the life insurance. My wife will be good.
There you go. There you go.
My wife will be good if something happened to me. But, you know, just kind of making sure that, you know, the things that I'm, you know, doing as far as business wise to kind of put additional funds for my children and working towards those trusts and things like that. I think this is very essential, and I really appreciate the information. And, you know, hopefully the people that are listening and the people that were listening, you know, after today will be able to kind of, you know, glean from this. What is the most common misconception that you run into when dealing with like potential clients or doing the will?
One of the biggest misconception is time. I got time. I'll get to it. It's just procrastination is one of the. Hey, Cornelius, thank you, brother. Procrastination is probably our biggest barrier to financial wealth, and I wish someone had said that to me years ago. Because estate planning, there's nothing too early to start that. Because especially if you're talking to your children. See, I believe in teaching your children what they need to know in the event you're not around. And so that misconception is I got time. Same reason people don't have enough money to retire with. The misconception, I got time. Same reason I didn't have life insurance in place. Because I'll get to it. And then when you decide to get to it, you get to be 54, 55, 56. You see some death around you. You go, man, let me, oops. Can't get the good insurance right now because I'm already got high blood pressure and this, that, and the other. Now I can't afford it. So that's probably my biggest issue. The other one is I don't have anything to leave. And that's what I hear with brothers all the time. I ain't got nothing. And I tell people, if you can't manage when you ain't got nothing, please don't get something. We see it all the time. If you can't handle things when you ain't got nothing, go win the lottery and see how much new problems you got. But they say more money, more problems. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I like how you touched on the dynamic of you know, brothers not coming up financially and how our wage issue is still there. That's just one thing that I've always paid attention to, as you know, the common narrative these days is, you know, men are making leaps and bounds more than everyone else. But what we fail to remember as a community, when they're talking about men, they're not including Black men. So yeah, I think that's something to really pay attention to when we're talking about down the line and where we're competing at in this arms race for success.
And EJ, you said it best, man. The reality is, here's when you can tell if it's good or bad. When it's bad, we always talk when you talk about Black men. When it's bad, we talk in generalities. When it's good, we point out individuals. Okay, you know, Black men ain't making money. Well, look at what these dudes on the hoop. Look at what Mike Jordan making. Look at what. Come on, dude. Mike Jordan ain't he ain't the majority. But when they say, oh, y'all just out there killing yourselves. So when we bad,
black
we
men the most.
majority and masses. When we good, everybody wants to point. Just like, and I'm not going to start nothing with the NFL. You know, well, you got a black coach. Come on, dude. If in this world, in today's world, we still saying this is the first, that's a problem. Think about it. It's 2020, and we still saying the first black, the first woman. That's a problem. So if we're still in the first, the miseducation is that the majority of us have not been put in position to be there yet. So that first is opening the door. Now it's up to brothers like yourselves to educate those who are coming with the process. That's why estate planning. That's why wealth development. That's why putting yourself in position to be in a better space financially for your kids. That's why I was so excited to be on here, because this is a platform where the masses can get through the door. Because it's not something, we're not waiting on somebody's daddy or mommy to learn it and then tell them. We have a live podcast that now goes down in history to be able to teach, and maybe teach some men that wouldn't have looked up a book like this. Maybe not even found the bank that might give them a little information. So I just appreciate this. Somebody asked here, I want to read this. What's the best way to breach this conversation with siblings and parents in regards to what they are going to leave to us? How to divide it responsibly and equitably? Cornelius, man, if I could give you the answer to that.
And shout out to Cornelius real quick. He just had a newborn too as well.
Congrats, my brother. Happy father. Cornelius, let me kind of share this with you. I keep pulling this book up. I had this book in my car, and my grandmother's riding with me. And unfortunately, I'll be honest, my grandmother has been putting things in place, and she started to have this conversation with my mom. But both of them are up there, and I'm the oldest man. And when this illness hit, I had to step into a position of caregiver. And me and my grandmother spent a lot of one-on-one time as she was coming through this COVID thing. And we started to have these conversations. It was amazing, because not only did we have these conversations about what to do after, she gave me history that I didn't know. I mean, sometimes we done grown up and we don't get all the history. We get what we saw through our own eyes. And did y'all ever know that what you saw in your eyes that was great in your family might not have been great in your family? My grandmother taught me some stuff. I was like, oh, really? I thought, she said, nah, it wasn't like that. Okay. But so Cornelius, my grandmother saw this book. She said, Jimmy, what's that? And she took the book. She read it from cover to cover. And she said, baby, we got to get together, because I ain't going to be here forever. I'm ready to go. That's what she said. I'm ready to go. But it's now time to start having these.
Think we might have lost Mr. Worthy. I'm sure he'll come back on.
Yeah, I lost him.
But definitely was in a similar situation with my great grandmother. She actually passed away not too long ago. She was 102, and going through that process of figuring things out. Because in that mindset, when you lived that long, and I think his grandmother's like 96, you have seen technology, you have seen so many different things, and they hide money. They have it in their head, but in our culture, we think if I just write on a paper or I tell that one person, what to do, then they will take care of it. But the law says something else, so you want to have these things, written down, not only for you, but for your family, because it's your last will and testament. It's similar to having the Bible. What would we be at if Jesus didn't write his last will and testament? So you want to have that for your family. And Mr. Worthy's back on so we can finish the story about his grandmother.
Yo, I guess my grandmother said, shut up. That was amazing. But can you guys hear me clearly? But we started having, back to Cornelius' point, we started having these conversations. So maybe it could be a book. Maybe it could be some type of video. Maybe it could be a podcast like this, Cornelius, that she's asked you people to take a look at. And here's what I'm saying. When people think it's their idea, they're more open to do it. So what I don't say do is tell people how they gotta get this done. Because the minute you tell, especially when you're dealing with us as men, the minute you tell me what I need to do is the minute I say no. It's just, I don't know why we built that way. That's the way we built. So to Cornelius's point, maybe sharing a podcast like this, maybe getting some information that you could share, leading the process yourself, being a new dad. Here's a great one. Start working on your family's will and estate and talk to the cousins, the brothers, the sisters, the moms, the grandmoms that are around, and tell them what you're doing. And ask them, hey, have you done it? Can you tell me how you did it? See, because some of them may not want to have that conversation yet, and it may take the younger sibling or someone else to bring the conversation because you are the example. So I hope that helps in some way, Cornelius.
And Philip, you were just speaking about your experiences, just from your standpoint and your work experience in talking about estate planning. What are the things that you've seen? Where do you come from in this whole realm of things?
For me personally, you got to find that person in the family that can separate their emotions, kind of. There's always that one person that, they might be emotional, but they're able to separate and think logically in the situation. That's probably a good person for like an executor trying to, start that process of getting things together. And you got to find that person in your family and to start having those conversations. We come from that generation. If you start talking about wills, you're about to pass away tomorrow, or the mindset. But we have to put those things into place. And I find that when you find that person in your family, or you start having those conversations, and opens that door to talk about financial things, to put those things in place, talk about life insurance to have in place, because you can erase that generational wealth gap between families if you just have a simple life insurance plan in place with your will and kind of dedicate. If you have, 3, 4, 5 kids, or you have one child, you leave $500,000 or $1 million in that will, in that state, put it together properly. Right there, you change your whole family tree. So once you kind of put those things together, and just from dealing with different clients and different members, you kind of look at it that way and think of that generational wealth mindset to kind of have those conversations and open that door with your family, because everyone's going to need to have it. 100% of us is not coming out here alive. So we have to put those things in place. And, whenever that day happens, at least you have something in place for your family, and they can kind of just know what you want to do.
Yeah, James touched on something very important, and into that message, we're doing all of this grinding and all of this working and all of this come up, but we just never know when, the time comes. And I recently lost, two good brothers very suddenly within the last 6 months. And it's just, even to the part of how the memorials and celebrating their life, those are things that, as more people closer to you in age, it becomes more real. And it's like, well, what do you want to happen? What do you want to see happen? And like you said, Philip, we're that generation. We don't really want to talk about it, but we know it's gonna come.
Exactly. Especially if you live in Baltimore, it's a necessity. If you live in DC, it's a necessity. Because you could be one, unfortunately, traffic stop away. You can be, one slip and fall. But you got to think positive. If you have that in place, it's at least that if something does happen to you, that your family is taken care of. That you want your children to go to, next of kin, whoever you designate for that. You want your money, the assets to go here. You don't want to have a funeral and have your family fighting over the silverware. I mean, people fight over, the craziest things in family, but, you want to say, hey, maybe my Jordans go to this person or go to my brother. You think you might not have something, but someone's looking at your stuff. So you always want to make sure you just have it in place, just to have that peace of mind, and worry about this building that generational wealth, and not have to worry about what's happening if I pass.
Absolutely, man. I just want to thank both of y'all for just kind of coming on and sharing this information. Definitely probably have to do a part 2, or I got some things cooking. I told EJ we might have to do like a live in person event where we just kind of gear it, a couple hours on a Saturday morning, and we just talk about stuff like, this estate will planning, life insurance, budget planning, all that. And I think that's going to be pivotal for us to continue to move forward and to make the significant gains that we can make, because we have the money. It's just that our mindset towards money is different, because we're operating behind, we're operating like 60 to 100 years behind. They had a head start for us.
It's way more than that. It's way more than that.
Listen, I was being generous. I was just coming. I was like, "Listen, they got a head start, and we
400 plus,
and we're still trying to catch up." So this is, if we can help speed up the process, I think this is the way to do it, and just kind of continue to reach, our men specifically. That's who I feel like should be geared to. That's who, as an African American man in society, I know the things that I wasn't taught. I wasn't taught how to effectively budget. I was that, I learned from my parents, there was month to month, I didn't know where I was. Some days, some months I didn't know where I was going to be, but, I trusted my parents. I know I was going to have a safe place. So it's just trying to get out of that mentality that I don't have to live month to month. There are opportunities that I can create based off of, the things that are out there in the world that we can utilize, especially all the financial tools that we're not using. Like, biggest thing is investing. And that's a whole nother subject or topic of discussion, because like I didn't really start getting into investing until last year. I'm in the pandemic, I hear other people talking about investing. I'm like, oh, let me look it up. Then I found a podcast and I started listening to them. And I'm like, oh, this brother sounds like he know what he's talking about. He hit on everything. So it's conversations, continued communication, information that we're hearing will help us to kind of change the narrative. And I find myself the more and more I get into this information, the less I have time for everything else. I used to be a guy, every morning I'm watching ESPN. Now I'm going to the podcast, see what I can learn this week, see what I can put into place to execute. Because I told myself I want to get to the point where I only got to work one day a week if I can, and it can happen.
And it's about having those realistic conversations. Like James was saying, thinking that we have the time, but I've been telling brothers this for years. Brothers are checking out way faster than anybody else, and it ain't always the obesity. It ain't always because you see Big Mama and all these other people, they be 70 something, 80 something, like they say, the food gonna be good if that arm is big, kind of thing. So it's brothers are with the weight of the world and the stress and everything going on, brothers are checking out. And we gotta have those honest conversations. Gotta have these honest conversations where we're not afraid to really tell the truth. That hey man, it's gonna come. You gotta be prepared.
Yeah. I love what Brother Cure said. My mom handed me an insurance card a few years ago and told me to put it in my wallet immediately. And we never had a conversation. However, I knew it was related to preparing for the inevitable day. Now, think about this, guys. In our tradition, in our history, in our culture, we used to pass education around, sitting around the elder talking. That's what you're doing here with this podcast, Dwayne and EJ. We now can get everybody to sit around and pass this history along, pass this knowledge along. So we may be behind, but we have technology and ways to help expedite the process. So I want to thank you guys for being here. I know we signed on and won't keep everybody all night long, but I just appreciate you, gentlemen. Thank you for letting us share. And as I saw somebody, Brother Michael, say, we can have a part 2, a part 3, a part 4, a part forever, because this is huge and we got so much. As EJ say, we behind the ball. 400 years to make up, so we got to do a whole lot of education. So I'll throw it back to you, my brothers. Thank you so much.
No problem, man. Thank you again for just kind of taking time out of your Monday to come and share this information. Definitely going to be in touch about, some other opportunities that we're going to have in the future, so that we can continue to, promote this positive atmosphere, promote this information, promote sharing our stories, promote highlighting us as African American men, to see that we are doing some extremely positive things, and it's not always what Fox News is portraying us as, or NBC, or whatever news outlet that you particularly watch. But it's just about making sure that we continue to put a positive image out there. So I want to thank everyone who joined us tonight. Thank you for joining us at Unapologetically Black Male, where we talk about surviving the stigma, standards, and systems. And listen, I need you to do me a favor. If you are watching this, I need you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you like, comment, and follow us on all social media outlets. You have the information here for Brother Worthy and Brother Seaman, and you'll also be able to check out the information and once we post it on our podcast, which is on Anchor, Spotify, Google, Apple. This episode will probably be posted by Wednesday. So you can check that out and send it to your friends, send it to other Black African American men, so that we can continue to promote this message of positivity and make sure we get our affairs in order. Most importantly, we have to get our things in order so that we can make sure that we leave a legacy, not only for our children, but for our children's children. So once again, thank you. Thank you to my co-host, EJ. Thank you to our sponsor, J. Pope and Associates. And we want to say we'll see you next time. Have a good evening.